Hello everyone. Welcome back to our channel, Canada Immigration. We hope you're doing great. Well, in this episode, we'll talk about IRCC latest updates 2023. So, to get all the information, pay attention and watch the video through to the end. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for upcoming episodes. So, without any further delay, let's jump into the video. Express entries targeted occupations. How many transport workers does Canada really need? Transport occupations are one of 5 sectors that Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, has chosen to prioritize through express entry category-based draws in 2023. To better use immigration to address labor market gaps in specific Canadian industries, the federal government in this country began conducting category-based draws in addition to standard ones through the Express Entry Application Management System in June this year. Standard express entry draws use Comprehensive Ranking System, CRS, scores as the main way of differentiating and ranking candidates against each other. Meanwhile, category-based draws prioritize candidates with specific work experience or skill proficiencies. Category-based draws, for 2023, are intended to bring in immigrants to help combat labor shortages in the following 5 specific occupational categories: healthcare, science, technology, engineering and mathematics, transport, trades, and agriculture or agri-food. IRCC's first ever category-based express entry draw was conducted on June 28 and there have since as of the time of writing been 4 additional category-based draws since then. The most recent category-based express entry draw for these 5 occupational categories took place on September 20, 2023, more on this later. Why transport occupations were chosen as a targeted express entry category. A September 2023 story from the Toronto Star, understanding that truck drivers are just one occupation within this category, cites a report that signals Canada's trucker shortage could pose a significant risk to this country's economy. According to the report, a lack of drivers results in shipment delays and barren shelves. This is believed to be a contributing factor to the rising prices of goods across the country. In light of this reality, it is worth noting this, cited by the same Toronto Star story from a report jointly developed by Trucking HR Canada and the Conference Board of Canada back in 2020. Canada's truck driver shortage doubled in just 4 years, between 2016 and 2020. Given the influx of recent news across Canada about the rising cost of living and the impact that reality is having on Canadians from coast to coast, it makes sense that Canada's federal government views the transport occupations sector as worthy of particular focus through IRCC's new express entry category-based draws. How many transport workers does Canada really need? While reported projections and figures vary depending on the source, Trucking HR Canada reports that between now and 2025, Canada will need to hire more than 17,000 additional truck drivers yearly. Again, trucking has been chosen as the primary focus of this article, despite it being just one of many occupations under this express entry category, because Canada's trucking shortage has been the most poignant concern reported on in the context of the country's larger transport industry. Further, the Toronto Star story mentioned earlier also indicates that Canada currently has a shortage of, around, 20,000 truck drivers, a figure that could reach 30,000 in the coming years. More generally, Transport Canada data published the following figures this March referring to projected labor shortages across the transportation sector in the next 12 years. 1. Trucking, 25,000 to 55,600 by 2023 to 2035. 2. Aviation, 42,000 to 55,000 by 2025 to 2035. 3. Marine, 1,000 to 19,000 by 2031 to 2035. 4. Rail, 4,000 by 2035. Taken together, the above data all suggests one thing: Canada needs thousands of new transport occupations workers in the coming years. What opportunity does this present for prospective immigrants to Canada? For new immigrants to Canada, this country's clear need for transport occupation workers presents a significant amount of career opportunities for those with experience in these professions. In other words, immigrants who come to Canada through IRCC's express entry category-based draws for transport occupation workers may find plenty of opportunities to build long and rewarding careers in this country. Additionally, transport occupations tend to pay a competitive wage in this country, which is something all Canadians but especially immigrants to this country strive to obtain with the rising cost of living. According to data released by Statistics Canada, StatsCan, in 2021, the median wage for economic immigrant principal applicants in 2019 was $43,600. Broken down hourly, assuming full-time employment, this works out to $20.96. Meanwhile, Stats data cited by the Toronto Star this year indicates that the average hourly wage of a long-haul truck driver in Canada is $27.80. Appropriately, not only do transport occupations present employment opportunities for new immigrants to Canada, but they also present lucrative wages in tandem. History of transport express entry draws to date. As of the time of writing, IRCC has issued one round of invitations specifically for Canadian immigration candidates who are eligible for express entry because they have qualifying recent work experience in a transport occupation. This draw was IRCC's most recent category-based draw for an occupational category, which took place on September 20, 2023. During this round of invitations, the Immigration Department issued 1,000 invitations to apply, ITAs, for permanent residence in Canada to express entry candidates with a minimum CRS score of 435. Roughly a month and a half ago, the Globe and Mail published data obtained from IRCC, which provided some insight into what percentage of this year's remaining ITAs will be issued to eligible candidates in each occupational group. Specific to transport occupations, this IRCC data noted that category-based draws for those with experience working in these professions would account for 1 to 2% of all ITAs given out through express entry for the rest of 2023. Click here to see the results of every express entry draw completed by IRCC, and be sure to revisit the hyperlinked page often, as it will be updated every time a new express entry draw is conducted. To reduce backlog, Canada's immigration body to automate processing of work permits. Canada's Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, has announced it is expanding its use of automation technologies to process work permit extensions and post-graduation work permits, PGWPs, more efficiently, in a major relief for applicants. New automated tools will be used to help process work permit extensions and PGWP applications according to their complexity, which will help enable quicker decisions for some applicants, the IRCC said in a press release. The move comes as Canada is facing large backlogs in processing PGWP and work permit extensions. The IRCC highlighted that the tools are merely used to sort, assign and assess applications, and that only an IRCC officer can refuse an application. The automated tools do not refuse or recommend refusing applications, it added. According to the IRCC, the automated tools serve two primary functions: sorting and assigning applications to IRCC officers. The triage function of the tools takes on most clerical and repetitive tasks related to sorting applications, allowing officers to focus their attention on assessing applications and making final decisions. The tools sort applications using rules developed by IRCC officers based on the legislative and regulatory criteria for the program. Files are directed to the correct officers for further processing based on office capabilities and officer expertise. Assessing applications for eligibility. The eligibility function of the tools identifies routine applications for streamlined processing, accelerating our work. When reviewing an application, the tools assess whether it is a routine case and can determine that an applicant is eligible for a work permit extension or PGWP using criteria developed by IRCC officers. The file is then sent to an officer to determine if the applicant remains admissible to Canada and make the final decision. Applications that do not have their eligibility approved automatically may still be manually approved following review by an officer. As per IRCC, the tools are reviewed routinely to make sure they work as intended and that the results are consistent with applications that receive a full human review. Indians' top applicants. India has emerged as the primary source of new permanent residents for Canada, surpassing all other countries by a significant margin. According to the latest data from IRCC, India contributed 118,245 new permanent residents to Canada in 2022, accounting for over 27% of the total 437,610 new permanent residents during that period. In the first 7 months of the current year, 96,085 Indians applied for PRs to Canada, representing more than 31.6% of the total 303,955 new permanent residents during that timeframe. Canada added 700,000 new temporary residents in 1 year. Last updated on September 29, 2023, 10:47 a.m. EDT, Toronto time. On September 27, 2023, Statistics Canada unveiled the new data reporting number of temporary residents already in Canada on study permits, work permits, and asylum claimants. This demographic data reveals a nearly 700,000 increase in the number of temporary residents year-on-year as of the second quarter of 2023. We expect that this number could easily breach the 2.5 million mark by the end of 2023. Reading points. No clear pathway for permanent residency. Province-wise number of temporary residents. Canadian population crosses 40 million. No clear pathway for permanent residency. These Canadian temporary residents, TRs, are facing uncertainty around options to get Canadian permanent residency, PR. More than 1 million work permit holders in Canada are looking for permanent residency options through Canada's economic immigration options. However, the number of PR spots through these economic immigration are capped and quite less the number of these TRs in Canada. Canada has set annual target for all the economic immigration program at 266,210 for 2023 with target of over 301,000 by 2025. Furthermore, these temporary residents have to compete with international talent for the same number of PR spots. Canada's flagship program Express Entry has a specific category for individuals having Canadian experience, but IRCC has not conducted any round of invitations specific for this category since 2021. So this increase in number of temporary residents across Canada is due to less conversion of TRs to PRs, forcing them to extend their stay by enrolling in study programs or getting LMIA-based work permits from within Canada. Canadian government also introduced PGWP extension, allowing international students on a work permit after graduation to extend their status for another 18 months. In layman's eyes, Canada already has enough temporary residents to fulfill permanent residency targets for next 6 to 7 years if they don't invite anyone from outside Canada. However, Canadian immigration has now become more competitive with focus on giving permanent residency to individuals having experience in occupations with labor shortage, francophones, and individuals with high level of education as well as 3 to 4 years of experience. Internationally, educational consultants have already started advising new international students to avoid Canada and choose other developed countries given the economic slowdown and uncertainty around permanent residency options. Province-wise number of temporary residents. Ontario has the highest number of temporary residents, close to 1 million among all the categories. Canadian population crosses 40 million. Increase in temporary residents has also contributed to increase in overall Canadian population surpassing 40 million in July 2023. More than 75% of the population reside in Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, with Ontario being home to half of it. Alberta recorded the highest percentage increase in population in 1 year as of July 2023. Upfront medical exams no longer required of Express Entry applicants. Express Entry applicants applying on or after October 1, 2023 are no longer required to submit an upfront medical exam, the government website says. Instead, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, is asking Express Entry applicants to wait for instructions before going for a medical exam. IRCC instructions for Express Entry applicants who completed a medical exam. If Express Entry applicants have previously completed an immigration medical exam, IRCC will ask them to include a copy in the pre-existing upload field for IMEs, immigration medical exams. Many newcomers must do a medical exam in order to obtain a work or study permit, for example. IRCC says if you have already completed a medical exam and are still living in Canada, you may not need to complete another one when you apply for permanent residence. However, provide the documents you received from the panel physician who completed your exam, including 1. Information printout sheet. 2. IMM 1017B upfront medical report form. IRCC asks you to provide a copy of these documents, or your IMEI number, also called your unique medical identifier number, from your previous medical exam when you apply online. If IRCC cannot use your old results, they will send you instructions on how to do your medical exam after you submit your application for permanent residence. IRCC instructions for Express Entry applicants who never completed a medical exam. If you're applying for immigration through Express Entry and you have never completed an IMEI, IRCC says to 1. Upload a blank document in the upload field of the Express Entry profile builder when submitting your application, and 2. Wait for IRCC to send you further instructions on when to get your medical exam. IRCC won't approve your permanent resident application if it determines you are medically inadmissible. That would mean it has assessed that an applicant's health is a danger to Canada's public health or safety, or it would cause too much demand on health or social services in Canada. Applications received before October 1st require a medical exam. If you have already applied for express entry, or you plan to before October 1st, then you need to provide the medical examination confirmation up front. It must be valid at the time of the application. Immigration medical exams are typically valid for 12 months. In exceptional circumstances, IRCC may accept proof that you have scheduled a medical appointment, or a letter of explanation describing your best efforts. However, these alternatives are not going to guarantee acceptance from an IRCC officer. Canada PNP Weekly Roundup, September 29, 2023. Published on September 29, 2023. Canada's immigration system relies significantly on the provincial nominee programs, PNP, empowering each province or territory to select individuals capable of enhancing their communities. This summary presents the results of the Provincial Nominee Program, PNP, draws held during the last week of September 2023. What are provincial nominee programs, PNP? Provincial nominee programs allow provinces in Canada to establish their specific criteria for various immigration pathways. Except for Quebec and Nunavut, each province in Canada operates distinct nominee programs tailored to their unique needs. These programs often target international graduates, entrepreneurs, and individuals with professional experience in different occupations. The selection criteria can vary depending on factors such as labor market demands and demographic gaps within the province. For instance, Ontario's French-speaking skilled worker stream aims to attract skilled workers proficient in French to bolster the francophone population. Immigration through provincial nominee programs contributes significantly to Canada's overall economic immigration numbers. In 2022, out of 250,000 economic immigrants targeted, approximately 83,500 spots were reserved for applicants applying through the Provincial Nominee Program. How do provincial nominee programs operate? Numerous provincial nominee programs, PNPs, conduct draws where they invite candidates to apply for Canadian permanent residence nomination. Some PNPs require candidates to submit an expression of interest, EOI, profile to be eligible for these draws. In contrast, certain programs directly invite candidates from the express entry pool, even if they haven't formally applied for consideration. This week's Provincial Nominee Program, PNP, draws. Alberta, candidates who are successfully nominated through the Alberta Express Entry stream will be invited to submit an official application for Canadian permanent residence. This stream is aligned with the Federal Express Entry immigration system. To be eligible for the stream, a candidate must have an active profile in one of the following three express entry programs: Federal Skilled Worker, FSW; Federal Skilled Trades, FST; Canadian Experience Class, CEC. The program is by invitation only and foreign nationals cannot apply to the program directly. All candidates in the express entry pool are automatically considered for the program when they submit their express entry profile. The province will send a notification directly to the express entry accounts of those candidates it invites to apply. While the exact selection criteria are unknown, AIMP states that it will seek candidates who demonstrate strong ties to Alberta and who can support regional economic development and diversification. The Alberta Advantage Immigration Program held one express entry draw this week. British Columbia, the British Columbia Provincial Nominee Program, BCPNP, a provincial nominee program, PNP, is a collection of immigration pathways enabling foreign nationals to become Canadian permanent residents in British Columbia. The PNP is strategically designed to attract immigrants in areas which will benefit the province: skilled workers, workers in sectors with labor shortages, entrepreneurs, and investors. The province operates several immigration streams divided into two categories. 1. British Columbia Skills Immigration. 2. British Columbia Entrepreneur Immigration. Prince Edward Island. The Prince Edward Island Provincial Nominee Program, PNP, a provincial nominee program, PNP, is a collection of immigration pathways that target immigrants with business acumen, skilled workers, and young graduates who are fresh from post-secondary education. The PNP gives prospective newcomers the chance to receive a provincial nomination through one of its many immigration streams, which may fast-track their path to Canadian permanent residence. The province operates several immigration streams divided into three categories. 1. Pay Express Entry. 2. Pay Labor Impact. 3. Pay Business Impact. Latest draws for Labor and Express Entry invitations in Prince Edward Island. Latest draws for Business Work Permit Entrepreneur invitations in Prince Edward Island. Previous PNP draws. Canada to catch up with competitors through new IRCC framework. It has been reported that through the Trusted Institution Framework, a new two-tier system will be introduced which will see international students with places at established institutions have their study permits expedited. However, full details are yet to be outlined. Graham Barber, Assistant Director of International Relations, Universities Canada, told the framework has been in the works for around a year and the sector can expect to hear an outline of the framework in early 2024. The initiative was born out of the need to remedy the visa delays the country's international students experienced in 2022, but Barber said that since then, other issues have arisen which need rectifying. Therefore such a framework is needed to help Canada catch up with its global competitors, he suggested. We thought this is a way that we could address this by creating a new framework in which the federal government and institutions in Canada cooperated together to raise the bar for international standards, said Barber. It's raising the bar on international student services and defining what the expectations are for institutions and really setting a standard across the country. At the moment, any Canadian institution that receives international students is classed as a designated learning institution, a school approved by a provincial or territorial government to host international students. Inbound international students to Canada are required to have an acceptance letter from a DLI in order to apply for a Canadian study permit. The new Trusted Institution Framework will see this system become two-tiered, where some DLIs will be awarded with the Trusted Institute classification for meeting certain criteria. Barber sees the initiative as both guidance and a leadership vision that is being proposed to improve the entire system. The benefits of becoming a trusted institution include lighter touch processing as well as more trust between the federal government and institutions. It is hoped that by removing the need for the IRCC to double-check verifications already checked by university admissions departments such as language proficiency, study permit backlogs will be reduced. It will free up some resources for the department to handle some more difficult and challenging applications, said Barber. College and Institutes Canada told the PI that along with its member institutions, it is invested in working with IRCC to strengthen Canada's international student program. In our view, implementing a two-way information sharing mechanism that would lead to faster processing times, more predictable outcomes, and bolster program integrity is essential. The Trusted Institution Framework is currently undergoing a test phase with the department engaging directly with post-secondary institutions on the feasibility of criteria currently under consideration with a view to ensuring alignment across the sector and creating greater transparency and accountability. A spokesperson for CPI said it strongly supports the development of a more strategic IRCC policy framework that is better attuned to the needs of international students as well as to the interests of Canada's educational institutions, communities, and labour markets. Smart and properly calibrated immigration policies can expand and improve access to affordable housing, health, education, and social services for both Canadians and international students, they said. The association has also urged IRCC to take a careful and balanced approach to any new measures that it pursues in order to both maintain the integrity of Canada's immigration policies and program and prevent any unintended consequences for Canada's leadership position as a destination for international students. Efforts to improve Canada's immigration policy approaches to international students need to acknowledge the full range and depth of contributions that they can make to building a stronger, more resilient, innovative, and outward-looking Canada, the spokesperson told the PI. It has been reported in media such as ICE that the framework will rely on a combination of government data, such as origin countries, study permit approval rates and post-graduation student outcomes, as well as data provided by DLIs. The DLI data includes things like on-time program completion rates, percentage of revenues derived from international tuitions, institutional spending on international student support services, availability of student housing and student-teacher ratio. Some stakeholders have expressed skepticism on the initiative, particularly surrounding such methodology. First, I have some doubts that it will survive a legal challenge, wrote Alex Usher, founder and CEO of Higher Education Strategy Associates in a blog post. This scheme is effectively trying to create two classes of DLIs, good and bad, wrote Usher. It's genuinely unclear to me that the Government of Canada can do this. DLI status is a gift of the provinces, and I am not sure under what authority the feds think they have the power to discriminate between them without provincial agreement. Usher also took issue with some of the indicators set to be used to determine an institution's eligibility to be classed as trusted. Barber told the PI that IRCC are still working to determine the metrics used to classify an institute as a trusted institute and that the metrics will be goals that every institution. It's a pretty complicated thing to set a bar for all institutions of varying sizes and regions, and so part of this effort is just setting metrics that work for everyone and are very feasible. We really appreciate the government's effort to be really data-driven and understand that there's a need to be really data-driven. We also know that doesn't tell the full story, said Barber. Barber said that the framework is not necessarily about pointing out the good and bad actors in the sector but instead about showing what it looks like to be a responsible actor in the international education space and inviting all institutions to reach this goal. That is all for today, in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later, in the next episode. Till then, take care.